warm welcome to political and social commentator James Melville. Hi, James.
Hi, Kevin, from a very sunny Cornwall.
Yeah, well, it's actually a nice day in London after 2 weeks of hell. The whole nation has been getting great weather. It's been awful in London, but it's pretty nice today. Listen, this is a difficult topic to discuss, and I understand why people are furious about it. But a Manchester United supporter was spotted yesterday wearing a shirt that some nefarious fans are wont to put on, and it's got a big 97 on it. There is not enough. That refers to the Hillsborough tragedy, where 97 Liverpool fans died in that terrible crowd crush. So obviously that is a disgusting, offensive shirt to be wearing. We know Man United fans and Liverpool fans don't like each other. Now, this guy was photographed yesterday. The police went into overdrive to find him, posting all over social media, "We're after him, we're going to get him, we've got him, we've arrested him, he's behind bars now, we're interviewing him," and all this. OK, what offence has he committed? It isn't an offence to be offensive. The police often seem to labour under this delusion. Do you remember not so long ago, the Merseyside police put a big banner up in one of the main squares of Liverpool saying it is an offence to be offensive. Wrong, it isn't. Now, you know, don't get me wrong, this is a disgusting shirt to wear, but in a free country, surely you have the right to be offensive, don't you?
Yeah, you do. It's like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, but they come with consequences. I think what the clubs should be doing, in maybe conjunction, you know, with other aspects, commentators on social media, is the naming and shaming of these morons who are doing something like that. You know, I'm a Manchester United fan, and I'm embarrassed by that. I think it's disgusting. I think it's terrible. But there is the thing called the law, and, you know, this is not part of sort of a criminal act. I think it is disgraceful, it's disgusting, and I think the clubs should actually take ownership of this well and name and shame, you know, ban them from season ticket holders or attending Old Trafford or wherever, and actually name and shame as well. You could get the players to come out against it as well. Yeah. That is punishment in itself, just by shame. Yeah. I mean, in Scotland it's quite interesting because they also tried to put through the hate speech bill and the rest of it, which opened up a sort of hornet's nest about where does that actually go in creating aspects of snitch culture. You know, that's where we have to have a debate about what is actually law versus what is protection of freedom of speech and also expression, but also the consequences that go with that. It's the same with protests. I'm all for the right to peaceful protest, but who plays God on this in terms of what is criminal act versus what should be named in shame because it's basically moronic behaviour versus stuff that actually isn't really causing any trouble. In this case, there's been a lot of naming and shaming about this, and rightly so. That's the consequences of freedom of speech and expression when it is disgusting behaviour. But criminal acts, that's bending the law.
Yeah, that's what worries me about this. As I say, I know we're in dangerous territory, or shall we say sensitive territory, because, you know, nobody should wear a shirt like this. It's disgusting. You're absolutely right, James, and if the clubs can do anything to dissuade their fans from wearing shirts like this, then they damn well should. However, the police, oh look at this, look, we're looking for him, look, posting it all over Twitter, we're after, we've got him. You know, hang on a second, is he even breaking the law? I mean, he's been arrested on public order offences, potentially, which I assume will mean that they'll try to charge him with inciting a lack of peace or something like that, inciting disruption or something like that. But you know, as you said at the outset, I mean, this is kind of a philosophical argument, but I'm afraid in a country where you have freedom of speech and freedom of expression, you are free to be offensive. And it worries me that our cops, the police forces of this land, don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger pictures of what happened in Hillsborough in the first place, you know, where the families didn't get justice for decades. You know, the police were part of that problem as well. That's the main issue here. But, you know, I'm a great believer, like you, Kevin, in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Without that, we don't have much. It's the bedrock of, basically, I think, a liberal democracy. But that also means the consequences of derogatory freedom of speech or malevolent freedom of speech or hatred. But there's a difference between criminal intent versus the consequences that will not be about police enforcement and so on. But everything in society now is photographed and amplified and spread out all over social media, and it becomes sort of forms of McCarthyism. But I agree on this one that these individuals need to be called out, because I think it's disgraceful what they did. It's horrible. It's the majority of football fans. The football fans get a bad reputation, but the majority of football fans are fantastic. They're passionate supporters. They believe in their team. It's a force for the good. And there's one or two that drag them all down. This is a perfect example of that. The police, what they should be doing, they should maybe their sort of quiet inquiries about this. But I think the clubs should be taking responsibility. The clubs are actually usually doing this sort of thing, give them the due. And I think, there'll be a form of naming and shaming, which should be effectively enough punishment for these morons who did that.
Yeah, I just don't want squads of coppers scouring the land, looking for people who are behaving in an offensive way, who are saying things that are offensive, who are wearing shirts that are offensive, maybe carrying banners that are offensive, because, I regret to inform the officers of the law that it is not against the law, or it is not against the law to be offensive, and as I say, you are allowed to be offensive. It is not an offence to be offensive, and I think our cops need a lesson in that pretty damn quickly. That said, again, I'm not in any way condoning what this guy was wearing. It's disgusting and wrong, and people should be persuaded not to wear this kind of thing, but it's not against the law, I don't think. Some might feel that it should be. Actually, give us a call. Let us know what you think about this. 0344 499 1000. James, let's move on, because I know you're going to be celebrating, because the migrants who've been demonstrating furiously in Pimlico, one of the nicest areas of London. They don't like the standard of the free hotel we've given them. £150 a night we're paying. We're giving them £45 a week, spending money as well. Plus, we give them free food. Now, they're unhappy about this arrangement. And Richard Tice, my fellow talkTV presenter, went down to Pimlico to talk to some of these people. Let's have a look at his on-the-spot report.
Another hotel, and this hotel is not good, actually.
So they've come from a hotel in Ilford, Essex, right?
Yeah.
I see. And so, but they don't like this hotel.
Yeah.
And why do they not like this hotel?
This hotel is not good, really. Have too much smell and
Too much smell.
Yeah, and room is very small. They want it.
The rooms are too small.
Yeah. Here it's very bad.
Here's very bad in the centre of London. Rooms very small. Bathroom too small?
Yeah, too much.
I'm so sorry about that. That's really shocking that the bathroom is too small. But do you get nice food here?
Yeah, food is bad.
Food is good.
Yeah.
So you're happy with the food? That's nice. No phone.
No.
But you have Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
You have Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi, but
Wi-Fi, is it good or too bad
Must
Wi-Fi?
be, yeah,
Shocking,
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You have bad Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
That's not good, is it? If you've got bad Wi-Fi. So where was home for you? Where have you come from?
Come from here.
You come from Iraq?
Yeah.
And you've been here how many years?
2 years.
You've been here 2 years, living in Ilford in Essex.
Yeah.
Okay. And who's been paying for you? You get a weekly allowance? The government give you a little bit of weekly money, is that right?
Give £8 for 1 week, and in here, this area, everything is expensive.
Everything's expensive, yes.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry about that. It's central London. It's an expensive city. And you've been here 2 years. And who's been paying for this?
Government.
Government. And who pays the government? It's the British taxpayer. Yeah, so it's all of us. Yeah, so we're all paying. And clearly we need this sorted out.
There you go, James. Are we living in some sort of Alice in Wonderland madhouse? I mean, what is going on? These people, they're in a place called the Comfort Inn in Pimlico, where houses can fetch 10 to 15 million pounds. It's an extremely exclusive area of London, very nice, down near the Thames, near the Tate Gallery. So we're paying for them £150 a night each, plus we give them free food, plus we give them £45 a week, and they're on the streets demonstrating, saying these conditions are not good enough. The extraordinary development the last day or so is they won this protest because what they were saying, we can't go 4 to a room. So we've apparently agreed, or the authorities have agreed, that they'll only go 2 to a room. I mean, entitled doesn't begin to cover this, does it? I mean, what on earth is going on?
We live in this sort of weird, sort of dystopian clown world where basic common sense is out the window.
Dystopian clown world, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Being accused of being a conspiracy theory for just pointing out common sense on so many different issues. And this is another one. You know, I keep saying this. I'm a big supporter of economic immigration. You know, it's done so much for our country, but what I'm not a supporter of is crass logic solutions that make bigger problems. It's happening on so many issues. You know, there's other, you know, the COVID response, net zero, NHS, you name it. Same with immigration. It's because governments, I think there's 2 aspects happening here. Governments are short-term and they're scared of making long-term legacy, sometimes very difficult decisions that will go beyond their time in power. So it's short-termism. And so they kick everything into the long grass, and they say that they're doing things, immigration being one, in terms of making sure that we have a proper policy that's actually in the right welfare and interests of communities around the country, and also the migrants themselves. They don't do that. So they kick it into the long grass and create bigger problems. And that's what's happened here. Meanwhile, us, the taxpayer, are looking at our social contract and think, where are we getting value for money right now? What is happening to our money? So while our national debt is going through the roof, has been for a long time, perhaps we need to ask the question about the government, rather than the government tying us up in knots with forms of digital ID and surveillance. Maybe it's about time that we had forms of digital ID on our governments, so we see where our tax monies are being spent. Because at the moment, most people are looking at their hard-earned income as tax going to the government and going, well, actually, this is not a return on investment. It's proving to be a false economy. And this issue, the hotels issue, is one perfect example of that.
Yeah, I've just worked it out. Knowing me, the maths is all wrong. But this guy alone, I think his name was Diop or something. So he was in this hotel in Ilford in Essex. They liked that place because they had apparently big rooms and very roomy bathrooms, and the Wi-Fi was good. They've been moved to this place in Pimlico where the bathrooms are too small and the Wi-Fi is not very good, so they don't like that. That's why they're protesting. Anyway, I've worked it out. We will have paid, on the basis of 150 quid a night, this guy Diop alone, in the 2 years he's been in this country, will have cost us, the British taxpayer, something like £108,000. That's for him alone. Which pretty much sums it up. And there they are on the street saying this is not good enough. As I said earlier, if you don't like it, guys, why don't you go and find yourself your own hotel and, hey, call me controversial, maybe pay for it yourself. How about that? James, I want to ask you about the dreaded Schofield topic, which has been dominating the front pages all week. Of course, Phillip Schofield has had to leave this morning under a cloud. Holly Willoughby's coming back, we're told, tomorrow to make some heartfelt statement. Massive story, of course. I do think it's an important story because ITV beam into our living rooms the most important, the best loved programmes. They're culturally important. It is an important story. However, why on earth are Parliament going to have their own inquiry Wednesday week? Dame Carolyn McCall and other people from this morning will be hauled before the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee to explain what was going on at this morning. You know, was there a poisonous atmosphere? You know, was Philip's relationship with this much younger man appropriate? Was it wrong? You know, what on earth has that got to do with Parliament?
It's that sort of inverted bred in circuses. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is perfectly feasible to have a commentary about what's going on with Schofield and so on, but politicians should be focusing on the things that they're supposed to focus on. It's slightly ironic that they're having some sort of parliamentary discussion, blethering on about this and possibly an inquiry, yet they seem to not be so keen in putting all the evidence together for the COVID inquiry.
Yeah.
The things that are actually important, because there's a lot of things that need to be unearthed there to make sure they don't happen again. They should be doing their job and things that affect our livelihoods, our jobs, welfare, public services, foreign affairs, you name it. List goes on.
Yeah.
And I suggest that Phillip Schofield is not at the top of that list, but it seems to be.
It's ridiculous. This is nothing to do with the government. Frankly, when it comes to sexual harassment in the workplace, inappropriate sexual behaviour in the workplace, I don't think I'm going to put my faith and confidence in a bunch of MPs who work in the home of sexual harassment, the House of Commons, Westminster. I mean, it's so bizarre and so strange. The only thing I can think of, and Rishi or someone should bring these MPs into line. What this is, on the Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee, you've got a bunch of obscure backbench MPs who are spotting the chance to get on television and get into the newspapers. But this is outside their remit. This is nothing to do with the government, and it should not be happening because this is taxpayers' money we're wasting here.
Yeah, they're wasting our money, as I pointed out earlier, in so many different things. This is yet again, I think you're right. It's a chance for them to get on the telly, get in the newspaper. Most of them are non-entities. But perhaps if they started serving the best interests of their constituents and focusing on sort of root and branch problems in the various areas that they're supposed to represent, they might have more chance of getting in at the next election rather than wanging on about Phillip Schofield. It's completely ridiculous. And this is where we're at. It's like, the circus is being led by the clowns.
Yeah.
I'm a bit grumpy today about a lot of things, but this is indicative.
I don't blame you. I mean, let me reiterate. I think it's an important story. I don't think that the newspapers have been wrong to be covering this because this is about a popular programme that's beamed into the living rooms of millions of Brits. This is about a company, ITV, that is at the heart of our cultural and social life. It's an important story, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing to do with Westminster. But the one thing we can look forward to, James, is the battle of the Dame Carolines, because Dame Carolyn McCall, the chief executive of ITV, will be called to this bizarre Schofield parliamentary inquiry to be grilled by the chairperson of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, Dame Caroline Dinage. You can't move for Dame Caroline's down there, I'll tell you. Let's move on to something that I would suggest is probably rather more important, as you just implied, James, the COVID inquiry. Absolute shambles. Boris Johnson going around saying, unlike everyone else, I've handed all my WhatsApp messages unredacted. I've given them my phone. Absolute nonsense. He's given them one phone that goes back to May the 21st, May 2021. Nothing before that, because he's got another phone that he hasn't handed them. So he's just playing games. Meanwhile, the government, Rishi Cabinet Office, are literally threatening to sue their own COVID inquiry because the lady who is in charge of it, Baroness Hallett, has the temerity to demand all the information she needs to do her job properly. The government is suing to say, we don't want to give you all this information, so we're going to take legal action against you. So, as I said earlier, the result of all this madness, this Kafkaesque lunacy, is that while other countries, particularly Sweden, have finished their COVID inquiries, we're struggling to even start ours. It's dysfunctionality on a whole new level.
Which exactly sums up what the government were like during the COVID era. We saw that in Isabel Oakeshott's lockdown files, where they were playing some petty power games and almost laughing at everyone else with some of their ludicrous measures. But there is an important point to all of this. We need to get to the heart of the matter and the truth about what happened over the COVID era. The government put through a series of mandates, lockdowns, restrictions that was still paying a price on economically, also damage to mental health, kids' welfare, elderly isolation, waiting lists. The cost of what we're going through now is a cost of some of the draconian measures that the government put in place during that era. And we know from the lockdown files that they weren't following the science. They were following their own egos. They were following basically like a giant parlour game with enormous cost to businesses and to welfare and to just general national confidence that we're still paying a price on now. So we need this inquiry. And instead, we have government trying to, again, either cancel, suppress, or basically kick into the long grass, getting to the heart of the matter and the truth. We are owed the truth by our government. They're supposed to represent us, they're supposed to serve us. And we need a lot of answers over their response over that era. And yet again, the government, the way they're behaving is absolutely appalling. What they should do is be completely transparent, completely open. And yet again, like they did over the COVID era, they're trying to avoid the truth. Whether it's Sunak or whether it's Johnson, they're not being straight with the people who matter in all of this, and that is basically the taxpayers and the public in this country who are demanding a lot of answers to this because we all sacrificed a lot over that era. And instead we had a government who seemed more concerned with playing petty politics and also clinking glasses at parties that shouldn't have happened during the lockdown period.
Yeah, and legal eagles all say that the government's got a very slim chance of winning this ill-advised legal endeavour. In other words, they don't want to give Baroness Hallett all the information she requires or she demands, and that will result, if they succeeded in this legal action, that would result in us all saying, well, we don't trust the COVID inquiry. They haven't got the right information. Therefore, that is letting down all the people who lost their loved ones in the COVID crisis, and that's absolutely wrong.